call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will take a look at the gold label Animal Man. Now he was released alongside of the Red Tornado, which I took a look at before. And we did receive rendering images of this figure a while back, so we already knew that he was going to be released. Now, I'm not really a huge Animal Man fan, but he is once again another obscure character that you don't really see a lot of people making figures of. So there are some pretty cool things about this figure, and then again, there are some negatives, but we'll get into it, the pros and the cons. Now, he does look pretty animalistic in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now, of course, these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also comes with his data file card. On the front, you do have an image of Animal Man from the comics. And on the back, you do have some information. Now, he does have a long history in the comics, I think. He actually has some pretty good source material based on him. If you want to go back and look into the different versions of Animal Man and all his different histories. Basically, from what I know, is he was near like an alien crash land site or something like that. And, he picked up some generative powers where he can take on the traits of animals, like, let's say, the strength of an ant, which, in comparison to humans, ants can lift up, way more than their body weight. I'm not sure what other animals are really referenced with him, but if you take a look at images online, he always has some cool imagery, which I really enjoy of the character. And that's where we really get into something interesting, and that is that on the back of the box, you do have an image of him where you could clearly see that he wears a jacket. And I'd say out of 90% of the images online, he has a jacket. And, McFarlane released him without the jacket. I already had this planned, and I did buy an extra one to do a custom with. So I did go ahead and custom him his own jacket. But we'll take a look at that later on. But he does have a pretty cool history in the DC Multiverse, so he is a very interesting character. We'll hold on to this. Now, he does come with some accessories. He comes with two kind of karate chopping or running hands, where I could see him running as he uses like animal traits, so that's not far-fetched. But also you could use him if he's like ready to fight, or something like that. So that's cool. Always appreciate having alternate hands. He does come with one left sort of gripping hand where he doesn't really come with any accessories to hold on to, but like I said, it's always cool to have that option. And then he also comes with this crazy sort of talon hand, which is a mixture between a human hand and a sort of eagle claw or something like that. Really interesting. And if you do look into the comics, there is source material that actually references this claw, which is sort of nightmarish and a little bit spooky. And I guess that was right down McFarlane's alley, and that is why he went ahead and added this claw as an accessory. So that is pretty sweet. And of course, he also comes with this. At first, I thought it was like some sort of rabid weasel, but later on, I did learn that it is like a fierce badger. And of course, since I opened my one to do the customs, that means I actually have two. So pretty cool. Now, there is no articulation in these. I mean, McFarlane could have at least had the tail move or maybe even the head just swivel. But in all reality, this figure actually cost me $19.99. I think it was like $20.25 with tax. So I'm not really going to complain for a $20 figure to come with a cool little animal sidekick and a couple of other alternate hands, especially since I have noticed something that I'm going to make a topic video, but I'll do that in the next couple of days, where I actually saw that there's some crazy toys being sold that are supposed to be action figures. And actually, I prefer to get this McFarlane figure, DC Multiverse, for $20 than what I actually saw on the pegs. But I'll get into that in another video. So let's go ahead really quickly and take a look at this figure. Now, right off the bat, what I do want to say is he is a really nice, sleek looking figure. It takes a little while to absorb him and to take them all in, but once you do have him in hand and you move him around a little bit, he is a really nice looking figure. Now, of course, this is just a reuse of the Booster Gold Blue Beetle body book. And a lot of people have even said, oh, this is just Booster Gold. And actually, it is not. And the very first clue that I found that this guy isn't, Booster Gold is that Booster Gold, although he was pretty fun, I didn't like the goggles that they gave him, the solid plastic. I do have a custom gold version of Booster Gold that, I really enjoy more than the standard release. But the yellow and blue original Booster Gold, I have not picked him up in a while. There's just no fun to him for me. I mean, putting him together with Blue Beetle is pretty fun, but as a figure on his own, he just doesn't have that play factor or posing fun that even Blue Beetle has, or even my repainted Booster Gold does. But this guy actually does. Like, once you pick him up and start moving him around, it's really hard to put him down. He is a really fun figure and really takes advantage of that reused body buck by looking really clean. So, first impressions, I love the blue that they used. I love the orange, sort of opaque tone that they used on the suit. And the black just really encompasses it really well and sort of gives you that contrast of really bright colors and then black. And then matching up with the highlight of his hair. Now, speaking of hair, let's take a look at that head sculpt. Really love the head sculpt. I mean, awesome head sculpt. Now, the hair is immaculate. The mask is done really well. But of course, then we get into the thing that I do not like. And that is that I wish McFarlane would just go ahead and give all of these characters that have these sort of lenses, clear plastic lenses. I mean, he's done it with the Impulse figure, and that was an awesome head sculpt. And I just can't emphasize enough how giving these figures that clear plastic just really boost up the ability to sell. I mean, I could see people picking up this figure and seeing that he just has a sort of like faux painted lens paint on his glasses so that it looks like they're clear, but it really is just a paint app, and saying, nah, I don't really want this. Where if you pick it up and you can actually see that it has that translucent plastic lens, it would just be a seller like that. So I really implore McFarlane to don't be afraid to use the clear goggles. That's just something, even if the Blue Beetle and the Booster Gold had those clear goggles, I really think they would just sell that little bit much more. But that's just my opinion. But all in all, it is a really nice looking head sculpt. Really captures that Animal Man classic look from the comics. Now let's take a look at the head articulation. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into articulation because of course we've seen it before, but I will, just go through it real quickly. He does look down really well. He also looks up pretty good without any modding. You got right to left. And of course, you could tilt his head for some attitude. So, all in all, I give him high marks for the head sculpt, for the articulation, but just those clear lenses would take this guy, over the top. And it just, although the paint app design that they did on the lenses looks passable and it does give that effect, like if they're clear lenses, it just does not compare to having actual clear goggles. So although I do like the head sculpt, that's just one, I think, misstep that McFarlane made on this figure. Now, as I said before, looking at the costume, don't be so rushed to to judge this costume and say it's crap. It is actually really nice. I really like the bright colors, sort of bordered around with the dark. It looks really good. You still got the nice smooth waist articulation from McFarlane, and you do have the paint apps that sort of extend a little bit, which gives you a little bit more room to flex them back. And he does have some crunch there, so that's really nice. Now, looking at the shoulders, one thing they did do, another, negative that I think is they did not paint the other half of the bushing for the socket joint. Now, they did do this with Connor Kent. Very minimal characters that they've done this with, but it would just look a lot better. And although I do know they're trying to keep these figures at that $20 price point, which is why I think they went with the painted goggles instead of the clear ones, and also why they did not paint this ring. Just that two-tone would give this figure just a little bit more of a premium feel. So although you put them in a certain way and it looks perfect, but as soon as you move them, you can actually see that the bushing is just one solid black color. So the the lenses was something I didn't like, and then of course I didn't like those bushings. And the worst part is I could tell you right now that to match this orange would be really difficult, especially to get it in this sort of satin tone that they have now. I may try and do it, but I'm not gonna promise anything because I can already tell you that to match that paint and to make it look really nice is just gonna be a task. So I may try that, I may not, but for right now, he's fine like this, the way he is. Now, of course, at the hands, you do have the four ways of articulation. Now, these wrist joints, the ball joints, are sculpted, but they are sort of long. But what they do is they give a nice silhouette of the costume. But the negative of that is when you try and manipulate it, it always comes off looking a little bit choppy. So, although I do like the articulation that the ball joint gives you, I wish they would figure out a better way to not have them look that, cut up when you actually flex them. But for this figure, they work really well. Now, of course, awesome that you get alternate hands to use on this figure. And another thing I've noticed is that we have so many hands now that you can actually like mod some of the other hands and get them onto this one, like give them a thumbs up, give them a sort of open running hand, and all this adds to the fun you could have with this figure, especially for figure photography and posing. So I just think it's really cool that we are starting to open up our arsenal of alternate hands. Now, let's go down to the waist. Let's check out the thigh swivel. Now, he actually does have some nice thigh swivel. Of course, if these are locked up on you, you can heat them up and then swivel them, and you'll get a lot of good range, which allows you to move the boot from side to side without having an ugly thigh cut. Can kick up, can kick back. Now, remember, the trunks are made of rubber, and when you put back the leg, they actually go back to their original form. So that is a cool design detail that McFarlane does. And we get now to the third thing that I really didn't like, and that is the boots, because once again, you could see the boot line here from the original Blue Beetle Buck, and they added the paint accents on top of the boots, just painted in. And although from far away you can't really tell, if you actually know your action figures, you know that this is a real big faux pas. I mean, I basically wish they would have just left the boots, a round cut and not added that little accent. Although in the comics, he does show that little sort of, I want to say, scalloped cut around that are like little, that they give the top of his boots a little bit of design. And, honestly, I think if they would have just put them black and painted up to the boot line, this figure would look, just the same. They didn't have to actually do that. And this is where they messed up. If they really wanted to use this buck as like a mainstay for figures, they should have made it a plain buck without any boot design. That way they could go in after and add a little piece to give you the different shapes of the boots. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to like about this figure. Three things that I really didn't like, but that doesn't take it down too much because it is a $20 figure. So, really happy with him. Like I said, he is really fun in hand. You can pose him, you can move him around. He gives off a lot of emotion. So, I'm actually really happy with this figure, just as is in his standard form. Now, I do want to show you guys, of course, as always, the original DC Universe Classics version of Animal Man. Now, I've had this figure for a long time. Now, I actually really enjoy this figure. Always loved him in my collection of DC Universe Classics. Awesome figure. He does have the clear goggles. And although the orange paint you can tell here is a little bit more dull, he actually did the boots correctly since he doesn't have any, existing sculpting details. The little round parts look really good on this figure. And of course, you could see very obviously that he comes with his signature jacket. Now, Animal Man, like I said before, is very pretty much always shown with a jacket. Now, this jacket can change. Sometimes it looks more like a leather jacket, but also in other images, it looks more just a sort of plain, puffy, like winter jacket that doesn't really have any of those leather jacket details. So it is pretty interesting. It is kind of a mix mash of jackets, and that is actually how I wanted to do my custom jacket on this new McFarlane Animal Man. Now, you guys know that I'm not a big uh, tutorial guy. I don't really like filming when I do customs, but I do them. And the main reason for this is because once I start doing a custom, I kind of don't stop and I usually forget to start filming. So it kind of ends up being like a big hassle if I want to film the actual custom work. So let me just break it down for you. I did start off with the Grifter jacket and the Three Jokers Red Hood jacket. Now, the Three Jokers Red Hood jacket was really tight on him. Didn't let him move around. It didn't have any extra access, and you couldn't even really like put it over his body without it being really tight. And once I looked at the images, I kind of knew that I wanted to do like a mixture of the two jackets and make one more traditional looking Animal Man jacket. So that actually made me have to do a lot of customizing. So although I did want some of the details from the Red Hood jacket, I wanted more of the shape with that popped collar and the design of the Grifter jacket. Now, the Red Hood jacket actually had some cool details, like the emmolets, those sort of like straps that are on the shoulder. And I did want to add those to the Grifter jacket because you do see that in a lot of the comic images. So I had to remove those from the Red Hood jacket and actually glue them on to the Grifter jacket. There was a pocket there that I wanted to add. And then I also had to add the little sort of button rivets that are on the jacket. Now, don't ask me how I did it, but I actually removed like some of them and added it to the Grifter jacket just to give it some of the cool design details. And I was sort of going off of the DC Universe Classics jacket, and I wanted to get it as close as I could. Now, once I did all that, I had to figure out how to actually glue the collar of the Grifter jacket because we know it like stands straight up, but I actually wanted to have more of a fanned out shape. And it took a lot of work, but I finally got it glued down and cut out and remolded and then added the actual pieces of the leather jacket to give it that full look of a traditional Animal Man jacket. Now, once I got it all pieced together, I spray painted it with some satin black, let that dry, and then I wanted to find some arms. Now, I actually ended up using the Hush arms from the 2-pack. Now, this figure is really cheap, so I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared just to reuse the arms. That later on, I'll pick up another one of those. But the main thing was that the shape of the cuffs was a little bit more traditional to what Animal Man's jacket looks like. Now, I do know that usually he has like some folded up cuffs that look more like the Red Hood jacket, but those arms were really short compared to this figure, and it just was not going to work. So I just went ahead and went with the Hush arms, painted those black, and once I let that dry, I was ready to add some blue paint. Now, I did notice that when you look at a lot of the footage that I got of this guy, it looks really dark, but actually in hand, you can actually see the highlights of blue. And it does have streaks of black and darker areas, but that just adds to the depth and the tone of the jacket. But all in all, my final product looks really good. I'm really satisfied with it, even though it did take me, a couple of hours of work. But as always, customizing, I really enjoy it, and it took my mind off, my regular hectic day. And when you're happy with the end results, it is awesome. So painted in all the silver details of the zippers, painted in the little metal studs. I did add some paint to, like, the jacket has these clasps on it, and I painted those silver. So all in all, it was, an awesome little project. Now, I did lift his head like by a millimeter by using a different peg, and that really freed up the articulation in his head and actually gives him a more stoic look, giving him just a little bit more height and a lot more free range of head articulation. So that was just like the chef's kiss that I did at the very end to make him complete. But I am really happy with this custom work. Now, another thing I did was I took some pictures. He's really posable, really photogenic now with his jacket. But that claw hand looks really good on him and made for some really nice footage and images. Now, I did go ahead and add his two badgers, and that just gives him that animal man look, just finishes it off. So I thought that was really cool. But all in all, really happy with this figure. Not only am I happy with the standard release that was $20, 19.99, I'm really happy with buying an extra one so that I could do this really cool custom and give more of a traditional Animal Man look with the jacket. Now, do not fear. I do have a feeling that we could still get an Animal Man with a coat, but it may be in a 2-pack with Bawana Beast, and McFarlane may even decide to do it as a cloth goods. Now, I actually prefer my just plastic version. I just think it looks a lot cleaner and more streamlined than any cloth coat could do, but you never know. If you find a cool cloth coat that looks like a leather, a faux leather jacket, you can add it. But I'm really happy with this one. It was really worth the wait, the money, and the work that I put into the costume. But anyways, that's my look at Animal Man. You guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.